I am not alone. I never was. By user SlayerMMA. I traveled the botanical tunnel. Rock groaned beneath my wheels, and sunlight shined sporadically through the overarching foliage. It was a beautiful natural occurrence, the way the trees connect their arms. If only the reasons for my arrival were as pleasant. Exiting the tunnel, a house watched from atop its hill. Its windows looked out toward the driveway, uncomfortably empty. Shingles clung to their structures after numerous storms have rocked the place. The peeling of white paint echoed its abandonment. The vibrant joy of life and any childlike glee that bloomed here was gone. I exited my little gray tin can of a car and opened the passenger door for Manny. He hopped out and immediately rushed to the stairs, wagging his tail stupidly, unaware of what was. I grazed my hand along the railing. The splintered wood reminded me of the changing times. I could almost picture two short heads of hair rushing past, off to do nothing good. Passing the screen door, I uncovered the main door, laid down next to the wall. Its hinges were still attached, knob intact, and had no evident markings. I half expected a woman to be waiting at the counter with her apron, starting breakfast, ready to tell me the boys were responsible for the door. Yet, I was alone. A perpetual void infested the house. The place reminded me of a foggy memory, how some parts are familiar and others were unrecognizable. Half expecting a nostalgic smell to take me, the scent of rot shook me. Every reluctant step, the repugnant odor made itself more known. The buzzing of flies littered the kitchen. Manny beat me to it. He turned his head curiously at the fridge door. I grabbed a nearby rag and peeled back the handle. Piles of meat leaked out of their plastic wrap, conjoined together horrifically. Putrid juices dripped onto the floor, gushing through the tile cracks. My arm could only hold back so much of the sickness that festered in that box. I hurried to slam it shut, a garbled squish occurring. Pieces of gray meat collected at the bottom of the frame. Stumbling away, hopefully to better things, I saw Manny licking the liquefied ground beef from the cracks. "Manny, stop, what the fuck?" I nudged him with my knee. There was more of the place I had to check out before unloading my stuff, mainly just needing space from the smell. Picture frames were nailed in a careless fashion along the hallway. Some pictures I remembered, others not so much. I tried to correct one of the frames, but it reverted to its tilt. At the end was his room. I took a deep breath and entered. It was the only resemblance of the past left. His signature comforter and shelves of vicariously collected action figures were untouched. Here many nights were spent. Nintendo, pizza, the whole deal. Manny strolled in behind me, nudging my hand with his snout. I haven't gotten used to him being gone. Manny helps sometimes, though I haven't had him for very long either. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I ashamedly rummaged the nightstand. I didn't expect to find anything. I was just bored and curious. A letter sat in the drawer, waiting to be found. It honestly startled me, because it was handwritten, with his handwriting. I held the folded paper in my grasp. My heart fluttered. Going through my things? I whipped my head to the open hall so fast my neck popped 3 times. I wasn't crazy. That was his voice. A little different, sure, but I know what I heard. I couldn't see them, though. I knew my pupils were shaking. My pits and neck began to feel damp and cold. Shivers and bumps ran rampant. Manny was snooping around corners, offering no feedback on an intruder or spirits. Room by room I checked, and I was indeed alone. I pressed my fingers into the middle of my eyebrows, trying to regain the composure that was ripped from me, not ready to deal with the heaviness that the letter probably contained. I shoved it in my back pocket. There was much to do. I transferred my things from my car to the guest room. It didn't feel right to be in his bed. I began the cleaning process by rummaging through the supply closet, unfortunately bare of pretty much anything. I had packed my own supplies for this occasion, heading to the counter where my Dawn soap and other utilities were. I noticed an oddity. The fridge wasn't leaking anymore. In fact, half the decayed mess was gone. I shut and opened the door again to confirm what I was seeing. I turned then to confront Manny, thinking he somehow got a hold of the filth in there, but he was out by the car peeing on my tires. Perhaps after finally getting some air it melted? Either way, I purged the damn thing, and even then I was ready to toss out the entire box. My phone buzzed for the first time in a while. It was a text from my mom.
Please let me know when you made it. I know this is hard for you, but frankly it's too much for the rest of the family to be over there. I'm sure you understand. Thank you. I love you.
I didn't respond. Later that night I was quite restless. The moon glared through my bedroom window, casting shadows. The way it would land caused odd shapes. There weren't curtains, so it's not like I could just close them. Silhouettes manifested in that hall, contorting and dancing. I left the door open in case Manny needed to go do his business, though I was learning to close it. The wind howled, and Manny whined in his sleep. I heard his nails digging into the carpet floor and with the occasional cry. No matter how often I woke him, he was incapable of shaking his night terrors. I wondered what plagued his mind. I joined his nightly purgatory, for his nightmares would invade my dreams. Dreamt of a tree, a man and a noose, each dependent on the other. The man held his arms out for someone to save him, for he would not die. He begged and begged. I had enough. I readied my knife and set him free. He hit the ground hard. His neck broke. The man didn't move, nor could he complain. I tried to help. I really did. Only after he died, his hair stood out to me. The light orangeness of it, along with the freckles that innocently glowed from his cheeks. This was no man, but a boy. My cousin. It was Josh. I realized it was a dream. That didn't stop me from weeping then. And when I woke up, Manny licked my trembling hand, my other knuckle wiping the wet crust from my eyes. I blabbered to myself like a lunatic. I traveled to the bar stools, hair in my hands. I felt like I couldn't catch my breath. My perpetual gasps were intrusive in the still night. Manny tries, but he isn't the help I thought he would be. The ongoings of our complicated human lives seem to be beyond his simple understanding. To be completely truthful, I'm used to dealing with these things myself anyways. Pouring my heart out only left me with the same digging emptiness I had before. Better to deal with it alone, I decided. No matter the amount of arms around me, I never could feel that connection. It was a barrier I couldn't pass. My inner being was isolated. I wondered if he had the same curse. My forearms were moist. My face was tired. So tired. I would have fallen asleep at that counter in my misery had I not seen his hair peeking at me from behind the counter. Moonlight outlined the edges of his truffled hair. My scream came out as a cracked yelp, scratching my throat. Without thinking, I tossed the bar stool at the figure. A silence crushed the house. The wind finally had a calm. The aluminum legs reverberated for a short time. With closed fists, I approached the hallway corner. I listened for the creaking of a floorboard, someone's breath, anything. Cowardly, I peeked my closest eye over the edge. There wasn't a soul there. I'm alone, damn it! Get a hold of yourself. I paced back and forth with a fluster of emotions. The adrenaline spike kept me awake most of the night. It was nearing morning anyways. That morning, I cleaned the living room of its dust invasion. Every swipe from my cloth made the uneven table legs wobble. The couch held no secrets, just crumbs. I sat only momentarily in the recliners, always listening for my uncle to reclaim his throne. After another round of scrubbing, fronting bookshelves and other general tidiness, I sat in my car. The break from the dreariness of the house was needed. The leather creaked underneath my jeans, and the air was stuffy. None of that mattered. It was away from those estranged halls. My gas meter was low. I knew I should have filled up at the last chevron, unsure if I would even make it to the highway. I wandered over to the shed. It was unlocked, thankfully. Inside were what was supposed to be red canisters, now a rustic brown. I hesitated to use those on my already in disrepair vehicle. I held off for now, and the case sign covered another source or closer station later. My head was buried in my phone, looking at the nearby stations all the way back to the house. I smelt bleach from my hands. Every small cut burned. The tips of my fingers were wrinkled from scrubbing. My shoulders ached, in desperate need of rest. It wasn't in vain, at least. The house felt entirely different now. It had some life to it. For a start, the frames were now organized, both walls down the stretch of empty rooms. Pictures symmetrically hung. I could not say if I had done them in a trance or not. The awful smell of rotted meat had finally subsided. A part of me felt a little healed. I didn't mean to hurt you. The TV was on. But I was not that naive. Fear had overtaken me completely, for I had no doubts of what I heard. It almost sounded like it was coming from the vents. A grate stuck out on the upper wall of the living room. The voice was echoey and dim. Hello? Who's there? Release me. My eyes watered and burnt. I was frozen, staring hard at the vent, straining to see a pair of eyes or fingers. Someone was in there, talking to me, and it sounded like Josh. I wasn't a believer, but right there I was. For the first time in my life, I whispered a silent prayer. God help me. The voice did not respond to this. It was nearing night, and the sun was setting. The idea of my back against the wall, eyes forward, felt a lot better than pilfering through a shed in the dark. Manny? I called my boxer. Manny, come on! He wouldn't come to me. Panic suffocated me. I had to force every step. I clambered to the bedroom, only to hear scratching. The door was closed, and on the other side, Manny furiously clawed at it. I threw myself in and closed it behind me. I didn't acknowledge him or apologize. I was too focused on the heartbeat in my ears. I placed an ironing board over the window like a small child, afraid of peering boogeymen. Along with that, I put a chair from his desk under the door handle. I would hear if anything tried to get in. After successfully barricading myself in for the night, I noticed the vent above the closet. It leered with a heavy aura. Manny laid on the floor with his ears limp, saddened and bored. I stared at that shaft, waiting for voices. None would come. I'd cleaned enough here. The realtors could pick the bones of this place for all I care. I was ready to be gone. That night I fought hard to stay alert. Withdrawals from my normal caffeine burdened me so. First my eyes couldn't stay open. Then my head would hang. Before I knew it, I was at the funeral. Everyone was there. The entire family, all in black, falling over each other. An empty chair was louder than anyone in that room. On that row, my closest family sat mourning. I was only there as an observer of the past. Josh had an open casket. They did good cleaning up his neck. Kneeling beside his shell, I heard, "Where is he? He said he would be here. It's too late now." As if repeating themselves would change something. I wasn't much older than him. Josh was only 20. So much more to give. It came out of nowhere. There's supposed to be signs, but there weren't. I told this all to him, yelled it into his pale face. Only then was the room finally quiet, and I ceased to hear my name. I turned to face them. They were all looking at me, their gazes fixed. Nothing I did would stop their gawking. So many angry faces burned holes through me. I snapped awake from the clattering of the chair. The door slammed against the wall. Josh stood in the doorway. He had on the same clothes from when he died. I hid under those sheets, like I used to do years ago. Strangled wheezing made its way over to me. Every step he croaked, unable to get that last breath. He hovered over my covers. I could only imagine the horrors on the other side, because I wasn't going to look. "It's so cold. Let me go. You keep me here." His eyes were corrupted, an amalgamation of dark colors. I felt his cold, his abandonment, manifested in the corpse before me. He asked for things I didn't understand. The way his crooked neck dangled made his words hoarse. In the midst of this reunion, I was concerned with the whereabouts of my dog. Manny had not barked. I tore the sheets off of me and watched Manny hack up film by the bed. Moonlight had revealed the doorway entirely. No figure to be found. Josh's presence was so visceral. Death hovered over me. His aching soul pleaded with me. Josh disappeared and took nothing with him. Looking at the time on my phone, I concluded I spent nearly 48 hours half awake. It was starting to catch up, and I was sick of it. Finally, I collapsed without abnormal dreams for one night. For the first time in a couple of nights, nothingness surrounded me. Feeling the sun's warmth on my cheeks that morning, I felt like I had survived a battle. The voices, the shadows, it all made sense. My mind, deprived of rest, ran the wrong programs, tapped into my buried thoughts. My dad had something similar, sleep paralysis. He saw all types of shit. My fear subsided, the world finally making sense again. I dug into my subconscious. All I have done is run. Finally, returned to this address, I wrestled with that. My guilt had become too much. I never reconciled with the person I grew apart from. I partly blamed myself for Josh. How could I not? My family, they never done me harm. They never deserved my coldness. There hasn't been anything here with me. I was alone. I made my own ghost. I walked onto the porch. The air felt fresh. The breeze was light, clouds scattered above. I trekked downhill to the back of the property. The tree stood anciently. He hung himself on the lowest branch. I pictured him there, swaying alone, his suffering finally at a close. My cheeks became wet. I tussled the letter out of my back pocket and began to read. I love you. All None of you caused this, or could have prevented this. I understand what I'm doing is selfish, but I'm tired. College, work, hobbies, it just hasn't gone anywhere. I'm dead already. In a family full of achievers, I'm a loiter. When I sleep, it is the only time I'm at peace. And Derek, I know we didn't end on good circumstances, but you will always be my cousin, my brother, my best friend. I'm sorry I won't be there for you anymore. I don't know if there is an afterlife. I hope so. God forgive me. The entire day I sat underneath that tree. I said everything I should have at the funeral. All my apologies, all my grievances. He had been plagued with the same illness that had tortured me, because I wasn't there for him. I would continue the same quiet war. For those who haven't grieved deeply, they don't know how time can distort itself when under such distress. What seemed to me an hour was multiple. I was without shower or deodorant for days, and all my demons had been poured in that dirt. I was unsure what was worse, my smell or the ugliness that consumed my face. Not much about me was pleasant, as I lightly tapped the back of my hand against the tree, noticing the sky changing hues. I trudged back to the house. The cold had creeped in while I was lethargic against the tree. I shivered aggressively, knowing inside wouldn't be much warmer. I still had some clean clothes in the back of my car. I pulled a white t-shirt over my gray tank top, replaced my hole-ridden jeans with cotton sleep pants. Only after the screen door slammed behind me did I notice the mess on the floor. Cereal and other out-of-date boxes clattered from their perched cabinets. The goods sprawled all over the floor. Manny stood upright, taller than he should be, taller than me. He didn't need the counter to support him. He was upright. He took a step back and faced me. He heard my breathing. His shoulders became rounded, forwarded, and heaved. His eyes no longer had that familiar warmth, loving dark brown. In their place was a piercing orange, unnatural and heavy in their stare. His iris dug into my soul. Intensity spewed from them. His face was his own, but also human. Anger exuded from him. I saw him. I uncovered him. I wasn't supposed to see it. I treaded lightly to the door. He never moved. Watched me the same way the previous figures did. His pupils glided within their sockets, trailing me. Past the entrance, I sprinted to the shed. I carried the 2 canisters in my hands and poured them all over the outside of the house. I poured gallons and lit the place on fire. I lit it on fire. I watched from the front yard, looking back at him. Manny was at the window, still piercing through me. I didn't leave until I saw the fire take him. He never budged. The roof caved in eventually, and that was enough for me. I felt the heat from inside my car. Wincing, I noticed a poorly dug hole just to the right of the house. A red buttoned-up shirt was reaching out of the ground. It was wearing his clothes last night. I peeled out of the driveway and drove without the radio on. I drove and drove and drove. I hadn't reached the highway yet. The botanical tunnel was endless. Trees arched overhead and united their branches. The gravel road broke underneath my car. I honestly hadn't had a single thought cross my mind until the car died. I wasted the damn gas. After the car could no longer creep, I noticed the cold, slimy snot that resided on my upper lip. I exited the little gray vehicle, slamming the door in frustration. The entire frame buckled from my force. The weight of it all finally hit me in an enormous wave. What have I seen? Was Manny always that? How far until I get help? These questions burned inside me. I walked without light from any source. The dense trees blocked out my natural exposure, and my phone finally died. I hadn't charged it overnight. My sense of direction was the only thing that kept me moving. Getting ahead and away from my car meant I'm closer to someone. Anyone. Grimy residue stuck to my hands from the withered canisters. My white t-shirt had been burdened with sweat. From underneath, my high-water sleep pants, the night cold enveloped my bare ankles. No matter how far I got, a crisp burn floated about my nostrils. The house's last attachment to me. A distinct scent of smoke hovered over the empty road. The quiet was interrupted by scampering. A run. Feet clattered in the darkness. It alternated between a four-legged gallop and a bipedal sprint. Not sure of what it wanted to be. It's moving so fast. I hear the beating in the ground boom in the vacant woods. Burnt hair and flesh permeated. It had been there from the beginning. My isolation was shared with something else. Even now I realize I'm not alone. I never was.